The Nigerian Defense Academy has confirmed the killing of 2 of its personnel and the abduction of 1 other after unknown gunmen breached the security of the military institution located in Afaka, Igabi local government area of Kaduna State. The institution is located within the same geographical location in Igabi local government area with the School of Forestry Mechanization and airport quarters where scores were abducted and later released after ransoms were paid in the trenches a few months ago. The academic's public relations officer, Major Bashir Jajira, says a combination of personnel have been on the trail of the invaders to rescue the abducted personnel and bring the bandits to book. A sad one for our country, Tundu. Just imagine West Point in America invaded or Sandhurst invaded.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Exactly what I was thinking. This is the bastion of military excellence in Nigeria, and they were invaded. They were embarrassed in this fashion. I mean, we've seen all kinds of things. We've almost become inured to reporting bandit attacks. But for me, this is a new nadir. The other day, we're talking about how the president was quoted as saying he doesn't want to be a failure. At this point, can any other word be used to describe the situation? It is so disgraceful. I recall on this show when the College of Forestry was attacked by bandits in Afaka in March, we were saying the audacity of these bandits when it's opposite the NDA, not knowing that they will actually manage to get military uniforms. How did they get those uniforms? We are not quite sure. They got the uniforms, they were dressed like the army, got in. Apparently, the operators of the CCTV were napping at the time, which obviously they're going to be court-martialed for, I'm sure. And they got in and they killed a Lieutenant Wooler and a Flight Lieutenant Okoronko, and they abducted Major Datong, who some newspapers are now reporting has been killed. So whether he has survived or not, the fact is that we know for sure that there are 2 casualties in our military. And these bandits, not one of them was killed, not one of them was captured. They completely overwhelmed our best. It's extremely worrying.
Dr. Basi?
Well, I think it's very embarrassing. It's shocking. And all the persons who have condemned what happened at the Nigerian Defense Academy, I think they are perfectly in order to do so. Because if such a major military establishment is not safe, the very place where soldiers are trained for the country, then of course you can imagine the plight, the fate of ordinary defenseless citizens who do not have any military training. And if you look at the details of how this attack on the Nigerian Defense Academy took place, that even makes it more surprising. We were told that the place was attacked by bandits dressed in military fatigue at around 1 a.m. And they gained access to the quarters, to the official quarters of the, of the officers within the NDA. And in the process, the persons that were killed, Lieutenant Commander Wula, Flight Lieutenant Okoronkwo, and then the Lieutenant Colonel Dalong, who was abducted. Another person, was injured. He suffered a gunshot wounds. And they operated within that environment. There was no resistance of any sort. In a community of senior soldiers and also soldiers in training. And eventually they left, not even one of them was attacked. So this is what makes it even more surprising. It was after the fact that these bandits, as they have been described, now contacted the NDA, and they were asking for Flight Lieutenant Dalong, they were asking for a sum of 200 million naira. But later, his corpse was found not too far away, and so he too is dead. So you have 3 dead, one injured soldiers, one injured soldier in this particular assault on the Nigerian Defense Academy. Now, the military now says they've set up an attack team to go after the bandits, to go and locate them. The same bandits, the same attackers that they could not do anything about within the premises of the Defense Academy, are they the ones they will now go after and claim to identify what their location is. Now, another part of it that we find curious is that we were told that the people in charge of the CCTV, which is part of the security surveillance within the premises of the academy, that they were asleep. Okay, you may say it was 1 a.m., but I thought what we knew about soldiering is that soldiers are eternally vigilant, and that, even there are persons who will be on guard duty, and they will be rotating them. So what kind of failure in terms of security is that? It's not enough to just come and tell the public that the CCTV officials were asleep. Now, another point that has been raised, which is even the more disturbing part of it, is that many Nigerians are already offering an ethnic analysis of this. And they are saying, are these persons who attacked that military academy, are they really bandits or terrorists? Could this be a case of certain individuals within the NDA being targeted? And the argument that those persons have put up is that, one, if you look at the victims, they are all from a certain part of the country. 3 persons from the Middle Belt, and maybe 1 person from the East. And how did they identify the quarters of these persons? And they did not go to other people from other parts of the country. It had to be Benue and somebody, Middle Belt, and someone from the Southeast. Now, nobody can have any proof for of that, but you know the way things are in Nigeria. The tendency is to put an ethnic interpretation on everything. And, we just see this as a case of gross negligence. Some other commentators, a coalition of northern leaders, the Arewa Consultative Forum, they've even gone a step further to ask for the removal of the National Security Advisor. Well, that's what they think. But oftentimes in this country, even when you remove the chief, the major chief, it doesn't make any difference in the long run. And to think that this is the same route where there was an attack on the School of Forestry Mechanization in March, you will have thought that in a serious situation, that efforts will have been made to secure that access and provide enough security for the military university, because that's what the Nigerian Defense Academy is.
Yes.
Well, if the soldiers in training are not safe, if soldiers themselves are not safe, well, what's that popular saying? If iron rots, what would...
Let do. But what you asked the question rhetorically, but I actually wonder, do you have an answer? I know you're not a military strategist, but I'm sure you know better than they do at this point. You said if the changes are made at the top regarding, removing the NSA, which I highly doubt will happen, nothing ever happens. So what will make a difference? Because we do have to make a difference. Something has to give at this point. Because we're watching, all of us, with horror, what's happening in Afghanistan, how the Afghanistan army seems to have capitulated so easily to the Taliban. Is this what we're seeing here?
Let me hazard a guess. Nothing will change. You know why? Because if you remove the head, it's just strategy. And you know what they say about management speak? They say culture will eat strategy for breakfast. The culture is corrupted, is rotten.
So what's going to happen to us all?
We are not safe. Let's not deceive ourselves.
Are bandits going to come and take over everybody then? Because at this point we have to ask.
But is it not happening on the streets of Ikoyi that people are being bundled and kept in their cars and kidnapped? People are driven to ATM machines in Lekki, and this is supposed to be the safe area. So you see, this illusion of safety we think we have in Lagos, it's just an illusion. We are not safe.
Let it not.
Well, but we have to insist on the basic responsibility of government. It's part of the responsibility of government to make sure that every Nigerian is safe, whether they are primary school children or secondary school children or students in the military academy or even the ordinary man on the street. Because, look at the cost of the insecurity in Nigeria, the implications for business, for even the image of the country, for even direct foreign investment, and the anxiety, the mass psychosis, the climate of fear, that has overtaken the country.
For me, it's just a sad reminder that we're fast becoming a joke in this country. And the earlier, the better for us. This is coming on the heels of Governor Zulum going to brief the president about what is happening in Borno State. 100,000 casualty. A governor has been attacked 50 times. The chief security officer, even in his state, is not safe. It's just by the grace of God that they've not killed him.
Yes.
We've seen brazen attacks on his life.
close to 10% of the population can be accounted for, displaced. Nigeria has become IDP camps. Tundu, I remember back in the days how some Nigerians, used to look at Liberians with scorn that lived in IDP camps in Ogun, Abeokuta, and some other areas. Nigeria are beginning to live in IDP camps in their own country. What we only saw with places like Liberia in the past.
It's heartbreaking. Well, on that sad note, we end on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rota Sadiri, Michael Wilson, and Aaron Akerejala to give us updates on Africa and global business, sporting activities across the globe, and the newspaper review. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rota Sadiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rotas.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to
Morning.
all our viewers. We begin with the Petroleum Industry Act. So it looks like that there has been a reversal in an initial clause that was in the bill, the Petroleum Industry Bill. And this is in regards to the rights to import petroleum products into Nigeria. So apparently, in the Senate's version of the Petroleum Industry Bill, when it was still a bill, Section 317, subsection 8, limited the rights to import petroleum products only to players that have oil refining licenses. And only a few players, Dangote Oil Refining Group, BOA, and a few other players that had those rights. So Section 317, subsection 8 said, as a result, because of the purpose of backward integration, in order to get more investment in the downstream sector for petroleum products, had initially limited it only to those players. There was backlash from the other players in the sector saying that you could, it essentially have an oligopoly to some, if you limited it to only those players. So what's happened is apparently the Petroleum Industry Act has been signed by President Buhari, has gotten rid of it, and now says that same 317 subsection 8 now says that, well, if you've demonstrated the capacity for petroleum product trading and so on, then qualified players can participate in bringing in petroleum products into the country. So although that portion of the bill still says that Nigeria does have the rights to pursue backward integration in order to get more investment in that sector, but at least there won't be any more calls for unfair practices by limiting the importation of petroleum products only to those players that have oil refining licenses. We move from there to South Africa. I did mention yesterday or the day before that South Africa would be releasing their latest unemployment figures for Q2, second quarter of the year. And it's increased again. It's at 34.4%. It was at 32.6% in the first quarter of this year. And look, South Africa, we've talked about the country. Pick your issue with South Africa. Eskom, riots, income inequality, corruption. It's just one issue after the other. So, South Africa has had 20% unemployment now for 2 decades. It's just been an issue, in the nation. And so, in fact, we have a chart. Bloomberg has been covering at least the nations with the highest unemployment rates, global unemployment rates, and South Africa now tops that list. If you look at the chart on your screen, you should have South Africa at 34.4. Namibia just edges out Nigeria by literally 1 basis point. The thing is that Namibia is at 33.4%, while Nigeria is at 33.3%. Then you've got Jordan at 25%. You've got, I think, Tunisia 18%, Greece at 15%, Greece and Spain at 15%, Brazil and Colombia at 14% each. So the thing is, though, Bloomberg did point out that some of those numbers are outdated. So as bad as South Africa is, at least they give you their data on time, right? The South Africa Statistics Agency is up to date as far as the data is concerned. So you know how bad the situation is. In fact, speaking of how bad the situation is, if you take the expanded definition of unemployment and include people who are able and willing to work but have stopped looking for work, South Africa's unemployment rises to 44%. That is literally almost half of the labor force. Now, if you take that number and take it to Nigeria, Nigeria's labor force is what? 70 million. Think about this. Nigeria's labor force is 69.9 million, almost 70 million. That is higher. Nigeria's labor force is higher than South Africa's entire population, right? And yet we're behind. Now, the question is, where are Nigeria's jobless numbers? According to the calendar, the scheduled calendar for the Bureau of Statistics here in Nigeria, they are supposed to be releasing job creation and labor force survey as of the end of this month. So we'll see what figures we get from there. But we haven't had updated numbers from Nigeria as far as unemployment is concerned since the fourth quarter of 2020. So, I mean, think about it. Surely those numbers have risen. If you also take the expanded definition of unemployment and include Nigerians who have stopped looking for work, take your pick as to how high that number could possibly be. And then we finish with Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has gotten their allocation of special drawings rights from the IMF. It's about $916 million. They've already said that they're going to use about half of that money to prop up their currency. About 2019 was when Zimbabwe went back to the Zimbabwean dollar. Between 2009, when hyperinflation caused them to abandon their currency, they used the dollar, they used a whole number of other, number of currencies, but they finally now went back to the Zimbabwean dollar as of 2019. But they're still facing, currency weakening. So they're saying that they're going to use half of that $916 million from their special drawings rights from the IMF, International Monetary Fund, to prop up the currency. And they're not the only one that's going to be doing it. Even Nigeria is going to be doing it. We have our special drawings rights, about 3.2 billion, then a euro bond sale. So any commodity-dependent nation whose currency has weakened will be using those IMF dollars to strengthen their currency. That's our update.
Right. Exciting insight, Rotus. And you see, that's why I'm shocked at this point in time that we are not printing monthly job numbers out, because we're in dire straits. The third country with the highest level of unemployment in the world is an invitation to chaos and anarchy in the land, because you can't swing it. You're saying, those that are not looking for a job. What about underemployment numbers? Underemployment numbers, when you put them with unemployment numbers, goodness me, Rotus, those numbers should be going to the high 50s or 60%. So at this point in time, like I called the last time, if we are really serious about creating jobs, let's start with the accountability threshold of publishing employment numbers month on month, so we know where we are going as regards solving the problem. If we are not doing that at this point in time, we are kidding ourselves. What makes the American economy strong? They publish those numbers out every month. You see them, and you can get those numbers through the payroll. You can get them through payroll input. So month on month, we should know how many jobs are created. And once those jobs are created, it will reflect in the payroll, and you can get to collect more payroll taxes. And it's shocking, Rotus, that Nigeria went from less than 10% unemployment rate in the 80s to over 33%.
Wow. Will Zimbabwe be able to strengthen its economy and reform its currency, with the SDR that they now have? I doubt. Because the major crisis they have had in that country since independence in 1980, Zimbabwe has been a big lesson in how the mismanagement, of your economy and even of the national currency can result in very serious crisis. As at 1980, the Rhodesian dollar, or Zimbabwe dollar, as it later became known, was at par with the US dollar. But of course, by the 1980s, when Robert Mugabe introduced what they call the Economic Structural Adjustment Program, that economy began to fail. Then, of course, they had the issue with land, and investors began to run away, sanctions against Zimbabwe. All of this resulted in hyperinflation, food crisis, and the country has not been able to recover since then. They adopted the US dollar, even that did not solve the problem. In 2009, as you pointed out. But by March 2020, inflation in Zimbabwe was already 500%. By July 2020, it was 770%. And the only solution that the Reserve Bank of Zambia could think of was to keep printing more currency. And the more they printed, the worse the inflationary situation became. I think one major lesson we can learn from there is about leadership. Compounding all of that was the ethnic war among the Ndebele and the Shona and the crisis in Matebele land, such that the leadership in that country has not been focusing correctly on how to move the economy of that country forward. As for the Section 317, subsection 8 of the Petroleum Industry Act that you referred to, well, we hear that there are many versions of this PIA. So which version now is the original one? And at what point did anybody realize that that Section 317, subsection 8 has addressed the issue of an oligopoly in terms of the importation of finished products? I hope we will not wake up again before the end of the week and we'll be told that another section has been adjusted. If any part of that law, after it has been signed by the president, needs any further adjustment, it will have to go back to Parliament for proper amendment. So once the president signed it, it has become the law. So I hope that this is not editorial exercise after the fact, and we'll be getting the amendments piecemeal. Due process must be followed. And I hope that eventually we'll be able to speak of one properly harmonized Petroleum Industry Act.
Well, yes, you certainly can't take TIPEX to a gazetted act of the National Assembly that has presidential assent. But I did wonder, because the Petroleum Industry Act, Section 205, subsection 1, talks about unrestricted pricing policies and, free market-based prices and what have you. And then you now get to that Section 317, which does create an oligopoly, talking about how only those with refinery licenses can import. So really, that's actually a really good move, if at all this move has actually happened, to open the markets up to new entrants and just create more of a level playing field so that we don't have people giving us motivational speeches about how terribly clever they are, whereas a law was made to favor an individual or a small class of individuals. Anyway, thank you, Rotus. Moving on to more business updates, we have Michael Wilson from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, good morning. So what we're seeing overnight really was a reflection of what happened in the United States yesterday. Best Buy results came in, and it shows that the US consumer is actually up there quite strongly. Also, there's a feeling that there will be a solution to the gridlock in the $3.5 trillion infrastructure plan, which is presently going through the House of Representatives and being discussed by US politicians as we speak. So that budget may well be advanced by the time we're speaking tomorrow morning. I certainly hope it will be. I'm going to take you through the Asia Pacific stocks now. Mixed really this morning, a bit of that optimism coming over. Quite honestly, Chinese stocks subdued for all the kind of reasons that you know. Chinese stocks listed in Hong Kong paired the gains that they had yesterday. Tencent down about 1%, Meituan down about 2%, JD.com about 3%, Alibaba lost about 2%. So basically speaking, we've got more and more crackdown from the Chinese authorities, this time talking about companies that are planning to list abroad for their IPOs. Again, more details about that. The last time that actually happened, it effectively stopped Chinese listings in the United States, with all the problems that causes Chinese companies trying to raise capital. As far as the Chinese electric car maker XPeng, it started. They call it a sedan. I think we'd call it a saloon, but you know what we're talking about. Expects to start exporting to Norway. But the important thing about this is they're not only exporting cars, but includes customer experience and also charging facilities. So that's really getting the whole system going. But I should cause just across the whole of the auto industry, a recent survey carried out overnight says that 51% of the respondents from the auto sector saying that the supply problems which are facing supply chains all the way around the world. This is conducted by the Economist Intelligence Unit, and they said it was hitting them hardest, and 1 in 5 of them have been investing in the Philippines and India as a possible way out. The United States is renewing its trade policy with China. Now, this is according to the US Trade Representative Catherine Tai. You'll remember that she was actually appointed by President Joe Biden, as somebody who knows about the district and so on. She said that the Biden-Harris administration and the trade representative and the trade office are talking about trade and more accommodation with China. China, for its part, has said it's just part of normal communication. Afghanistan. Now, the World Bank joins the queue of people halting aid to the Afghan country. Move comes just days after the IMF said that it would not be sending money until they had an idea of what the Taliban were planning for the company. And this also includes the news at the beginning of the week and over the weekend, last weekend, that that Afghanistan assets, international assets, have been frozen. Now, I think we just missed talking about on the morning show that very important news out of Airbnb yesterday, which was providing help and accommodation for 20,000 Afghan refugees. The boss of that is now saying that Brian Chesky, now saying that he feels as though business ought to step in to help even further. Now is the right time for it to happen. So I was talking about the US markets. I'm going to recap them for you very briefly. We got into record territory again, but we still got that Jackson Hole meeting coming up Thursday and Friday, i.e. tomorrow and Friday this week. And it could be more and more people are saying maybe they'll put off talking about tightening the economy until September. I hate to tell you I told you so, but I did. I was saying this, that maybe it might be much later than that. In fact, beginning of the year before they start to talk about things. A lot of the rebound this week has been based on one particular Fed member saying he's less convinced about tightening and so on. I think when you're getting to that kind of level, then you really stop making guesses about things. But we'll see about that. Now, also yesterday, Joe Biden was, of course, that amazing drug news came yesterday, the approval of that. You're going to hear this word more and more now. It's called mandatory. And what it means is that Joe Biden and the rest of corporate America is now saying that employees should get now vaccinated. A separate poll of employers, listen to this one, it says that a share of those imposing vaccine mandates are planning to do so has doubled during the year, and those people who do not get vaccinated should pay more into their health insurance. So it's all moving there. UK, bring you back to here, the investment minister. Yes, we do have one. I wasn't sure about this, but we do. He's called Lord Grimston. And he's been saying, this is ahead of a conference which is encouraging investment into the UK, that foreign companies often run British ones better than the British actually do. And of course, you won't need me to tell you, because I've been talking about this for a while. Morrison's, Ultra and Meggitt, not so much Morrison's, but Meggitt and Ultra, engineering companies with fairly sensitive security footprints, are being looked at to see whether we're going to allow them to be taken over by foreign companies. And one thing that I should also tell you is that we're just getting this news now that as far as those supply chains are concerned, the boss of the Cooperative, this is a big supermarket chain within the UK, is saying he's never seen food shortages like this ever since he's been working for the company. Very briefly, oil, it's snap up again, much depending upon the Delta variant and growth prospects and so on. Gold really very much on the sidelines ahead of the Jackson Hole Virtual Summit, which starts tomorrow. That's the global view.
Right, let's go to China a bit this morning. Our tech stocks rebounded over trading yesterday because of JD.com. Do you think JD.com alone can pull up that tech resurgence after a state clamped down on tech generally in China? And the future of oil, one of the biggest shipping lines in the world, Maersk, is thinking of using green methanol as power or as energy to power its big ships all over the world. So is that the beginning of the end of oil, or the end of the beginning, really?
No, not the beginning of the end of oil. Oil's got a long way to go. That's one shipping line. The fact is that whatever Maersk does, dwarfs in comparison to automobiles and the rest of it, which will still need to use fossil fuels for a considerable amount of time because the electrical infrastructure is not there, nor is the technology to have batteries which keep energy. It's not sufficiently developed. And we were talking, weren't we, a couple of days ago about things like Tesla. You know, there's always a search for electric vehicle manufacturers and so on. And Tesla saying that their production has not met expectations, and we've got supply systems as well. So no, I think is the answer to your question. Fossil fuels have still got a long way to go. But I think when it happens, it will take us all by surprise. But it's not happening yet. So OPEC is relatively safe at the moment. As far as China's concerned, I have no idea what's going on. I mean, there's a fog of different messages coming out. It might be JD.com, it may be Alibaba, who knows? I mean, if their regulatory system, as I keep saying, once you get a risk that can be calculated, then you can make sensible decisions about whether you actually want to invest in China and where China is going. At the moment, we do not know, because what's happening is that constantly the information is differing that's coming out at the moment. So Hong Kong listed tech shares from Chinese companies go up and down basically on a daily basis, as I bring you most mornings in the Asia Pacific markets. It's the way it is.
Well, two quick things. One, Lord Grimstone, the business minister in the UK, is saying that there's nothing to fear if foreign investors take over British businesses. That, in fact, is something that should be encouraged. You know the story about Meggitt, about Ultra, about Morrisons. And he says, foreign investors in charge of businesses in the UK tend to be more productive, and they tend to create more jobs. And he's even planning a major summit to attract international businesses. Well, did it sound nationalistic enough? What exactly is he alluding to? And do you agree with him? And then as for Afghanistan, what is the future of Afghanistan's economy? The IMF has turned its back against the Taliban. The World Bank is the latest, and the US government has frozen assets of the Afghanistan Central Bank worth over $9 billion. So how would the Taliban manage to run a country if they won't get aid and they can't even have access to their reserves?
Lord Grimstone, I'd never heard of him actually before I read the headlines. You know, apparently he's called the investment minister. Well, good luck with that. Yes, of course, foreign companies do run British companies rather well. I'm not so much, I take you back to the Japanese and Honda and also Nissan as well, coming over here and seeing a great workplace, but actually basing themselves here and forging the way in which work practice actually worked all those years ago, beginning in 1979, which is a long, long time ago. Yes, he's got a point. I think, though, that what he's not actually grasping is the fact that, yes, of course, he wants to encourage investment into the UK. It's the way forward after Brexit. But I think that what the government's concerned about, his colleagues in government are concerned about, is the likes of Ultra and Meggitt, which are both engineering and software companies, respectively, which actually deal in matters which are of grave national security. And I don't think we should be, personally, and I think this is what he's not addressing. But as far as Morrisons is concerned, it may well be that the American private equity company who bid the most for it take it over. Does that mean all those 11,000 jobs are safe? Does that mean the traditions of Morrison, which are actually based in the UK? And as I said to you, the danger signs that we had about this is the Americans saying it looks unloved, i.e., let's go and buy it. You know, this is it's all very complex, and of course, this is what's going to have to be decided at this recently announced investment conference later in the year. Yes, we should be having inward investment. That's the most important thing. Investment is the key, not the ownership. The ownership can do what it likes, no matter where it's owned from. Provided you have investment in a country, investment in a labour force, investment in machinery, investment in capital expenditure, then that's absolutely fine. I think that's what he's trying to get towards, and we'll see at this conference later this year. As far as Afghanistan, As far as Afghanistan's concerned, you asked me about Afghanistan.
Yes,
there is
yes.
no future as far as Afghanistan is concerned because there is no money. There is no functioning central bank. The Taliban will have to come forward. We're going to be talking about the G7. We're going to be talking about the UN Security Council. We want, I say we, the developed world wants to know where this country is actually going and what it plans for its central bank. At the moment, we know nothing.
Well, I wanted to discuss the Goldman Sachs and the mandatory vaccines as well as masks and just like the end of the traditional water cooler. But it appears that we don't have time. Perhaps tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.